in, okay?
Okay, sure thing. So, welcome to our Success Express AI latest development workshop. I'm Sheldon Prenovitz from ConnectPay, a member of the Carter 495 Regional Chamber Metro West Program Committee. I'd like to welcome everybody here and just let you know the mission of the chamber is to be a dynamic regional business organization striving to promote growth, prosperity, and quality of life for our members and communities. And the purpose of our webinar is to help our webinars, all of them is really to help chamber members with their professional business development. Each webinar is designed to be interactive and presented by a chamber member who's an expert in their field. We'd be thrilled if you keep your video on if you can, so we know you're present. It helps the presenter gauge their presentation. And it's also a networking event. So don't forget, please, to also put your contact information in the chat box area so others can maybe reach out to you and know, so we get to know who's here and do some networking on the side here. And I'd also like to thank Berkshire Bank, our sponsor for the Success Express webinar series, part of the series. And with that, I'd like to introduce Sonia to say a few words, if you'd like to, Sonia.
Good morning, and thank you, Sheldon. I'm sorry, everyone, my camera is not working. My name is Sonia Decormier. I'm a business relationship manager at Berkshire Bank here in Worcester. Berkshire Bank, we are proud sponsor for the series of webinar presented to local businesses. Just a little bit more about Berkshire Bank. We are a small community bank. We've been in business for 180 years. We strive to help small local businesses thrive financially and grow. Maybe recently you have heard that we are going to a merger. So yes, we're going to be merging with Brookline Bank and Bank of Rhode Island. So we are proud again to be a presenting sponsor for this series of webinar. I will turn it back over to you, Sheldon, and thank you for
Oh,
joining
great,
us.
great. Thank you, Sonia. And now it's with pleasure I'd like to introduce our speaker, Dustin Hopkins from Kingside. Dustin is a leading AI consultant and sought after speaker, specializing in AI applications for business growth. With an engineering background, he advises New England businesses on leveraging AI to boost revenue and efficiency. Dustin regularly delivers talks on AI innovation to business owners, bridging the gap between cutting edge technology and practical business solutions. As founder of Worcester's 200 plus members chess club and board member of the Massachusetts Chess Association, Dustin brings a unique blend of strategic thinking and community leadership to his work. His expertise in website development, AI automations, and business strategy makes him a dynamic thought leader in both tech and business circles. So without further ado, Dustin, take it away.
Thank you so much, Sheldon. And thanks to the 495 Chamber for having me. I love talking about AI. It's always changing. It's really a landscape that keeps me on my toes, and I think is keeping everybody else on their toes too. So I've given a few talks on this. The way I think it goes well is if we review some things. I'll give kind of a background. These are some use cases. This is kind of my idea of where AI is for about 20 minutes. Do a little bit of a demo, which I think will be really enlightening, just actually using the tools instead of just presenting them. And I really like to leave at least 20 minutes at the end so people can say, hey, how would you do this or how would you do that? And we can even have maybe some live demos from suggestions out there in the audience. My background with AI started in 2021, 2022. I was at a web conference and I met this founder. She was really smart, had this really good idea, and she said, and we're using GPT to do a lot of our code. So of course I was intrigued. I asked her a little bit more, and she shared that at the time, GPT-3 was this tool that could write code. It was this AI code writer. So we used it on some projects. It did okay with JavaScript. And then since I signed up for GPT-3, I was on their newsletter and I got the notification in November that they produced ChatGPT. So that was my first time using it, and I thought that it would completely take over. And now it's like 3 years later, and we're still helping people get started using it. So I tell that timeline because some people feel this like, oh no, I have to use AI or I'm getting left behind or, I have to adapt really quickly. But from my perspective, I've seen that people have actually been very slow to adopt this technology. So just taking the step today to be here and to try to engage in it and to log in, you're actually ahead of, from my perspective, most people. So yes, AI in action, but really, so what? Like, what is the main value proposition here for AI? The main thing is that it saves time. There are some examples of big businesses like Klarna, which is a finance company. This is actually a really old piece of data, but it still is relevant today. Klarna is a finance company and they have a really big customer service department. So they created some AI agents that were able to replace 700 full-time agents, 700 full-time employees. And there's a bunch of data here, like 25% drop in repeat inquiries. They did it in 35 languages. We're able to resolve things quicker. So there are examples that you'll see out there of, again, big businesses using AI. In this talk, I want to translate this on how can small businesses or even single owner businesses use this effectively. Because obviously Klarna has a bunch of money and a bunch of developers. So this example doesn't really pertain to us. Um, the real benefit to a local or small business owner is that it's going to save you a lot of time. And when you think about hiring somebody for your business, if your business is scalable in that way, you're hiring a person to buy back the time of the owner. So then the owner can devote their time to being more effective for the growth of the business. And that's really how I see AI plugging into businesses is you're hiring a robot that is going to save you time. And the way that it ends up like my perspective on it is if you're using these AI tools to speed through some of the mundane parts of your week, and let's say it saves you 2 hours a week, at the end of the month, that's about 8 hours, and you start to kind of extrapolate out how much time you've gotten back and how much more you've been able to get done by using these tools. Some examples, uh, most of the examples are going to be admin tasks. They're going to be producing documents or responding or social media posts. Sometimes customer service and marketing. We'll get to that with some of the examples. And then we'll be able to really showcase some of those examples in the demo. But really, this bottom bullet is what I use as a compass. If I ever feel like I'm starting to procrastinate doing something within my business, I know that the first step should be just open AI and get started. Um, I think it's important to pause and say like if there is a way for everybody to walk away from this talk and think how can I start using this? It is to start something you really don't want to do. You just open the chat, you kind of blabber at it, and then it's at least starting the thing that you're avoiding. So I want to answer the question, what is artificial intelligence? I think it's important to really define it before we get into the nitty-gritty. Um, the kind of AI we're talking about are called LLMs. That stands for large language models. And the main one that we use or that the main one that everybody's using is called ChatGPT. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Transformer is the piece of technology that was developed about 20 years ago, and that person has won the Nobel Prize for developing this. It's important to understand that the way that these LLMs work is not like it's really thinking or computing. It's not understanding your question and then trying to answer it in like a logical way. The way that transformers work is that it is a predictive model. It is taking in the text that you give it, and then it is using all of its pre-trained information to generate the next words that it thinks should come after your prompt. So it's important. It's really, really important to understand that that's how it works. And it's not some like supercomputer that's computing and like really understanding every word. Like this is just predicting the next word that's likely to come next. Um, and so that helps us to understand like what it needs. The more information you give it, the more words that you give it initially, the easier it is for it to predict what words should come next. And I'm saying a lot of like words and all that stuff. It's very important to understand that this is all text-based generation. So, coming into this talk, if you knew nothing about AI and you kind of think, how can AI be used in my business? It's going to be in text generation. So, meeting notes, business planning, which we'll get to in a bit, SOPs, research, or kind of going back and forth, to help you think through some issues. So there are a lot of LLMs out there, but there's really three major ones. And you can see that they're really consolidated with the biggest tech companies in the US. So ChatGPT is the main one that's got the most amount of money, most amount of users. And their leading investors are Microsoft, Apple, and Nvidia. There's also Claude, which is very good at code. It's, in my opinion, better at writing and creative writing than ChatGPT, and that's owned by Amazon. And then Gemini is its advantage over the other two is that it has a very large context window. You can upload a lot of information to Gemini, and it's able to handle a lot more information than the others. But in my opinion, it's certainly weak in writing text and understanding. So this slide's important mostly for those that were around during the dot-com boom. And to understand that this is very different from the dot-com boom. And the dot-com, the internet was this free new technology open to everybody. And so it was up to each person's developer skills and entrepreneurial spirit to make a winning website. In this day and age, with the AI boom, it is between these titan companies, these trillion-dollar companies that are all duking it out to make the best version of, to make the best LLM, and how like we don't exactly have the ability to contribute to that fight. We're only able to see which one of these is winning out in what area, and then how can we use that in our business. So I hope that makes sense on what exactly AI is. And of course, anybody can put a question in the chat. I'm not sure exactly if I can see the chat, but I see some information put in there. But if anybody has any questions about exactly what AI is or wants me to review that stuff, just put it in the chat and we'll get back to it. So this slide shows exactly how I use AI. I really only use about two tools. Perplexity is like if ChatGPT and Google had a baby. If you think like, all right, I have to do some research, I'm gonna go to Google. It's gonna have the top 10 links. I'm gonna go and understand each one, and then I'll have to read and understand each link, and then I'll have some semblance of an idea of what I'm researching. Perplexity kind of does that for you. It'll do a Google search and then it'll use OpenAI or another large language model, but it'll use ChatGPT to go and read all of those top 10 links and then create a summary in like a couple seconds. So I've been using Perplexity over Google for probably over a year now. Um, Perplexity is one of the best for search. Of course, there has been some changes, and OpenAI is now able to do deep research because they've kind of, ripped off Perplexity. So I'll showcase that in a little bit. But the main change now is you don't have to combine these. You can actually do everything within just OpenAI's just ChatGPT. And that's what I'll showcase a little later. Another way that I use AI a lot is, I have a lot of virtual meetings and I use something called Fathom, which is free. It's uh, just a note taker that takes up a seat in an online virtual meeting, and then it kind of creates a transcript based on excuse me just one second, creates a transcript based on what everybody's talking about. And so a way that I used it yesterday was I have a client and they have a portfolio of projects. And, so we built a portfolio collection on their website, but it's just a bunch of photos. There's no information about the process or what the client wanted. And it can be kind of a pain for me to ask the client and say, hey, we're building this portfolio. Can you tell me the story of this client? And it was way easier for me to hop on a Zoom call with them, flip on Fathom, have a conversation about the project, and then it creates this transcript where they tell me this story. And then I take that transcript, I give it to AI, and then it's able to create a full portfolio. Somebody just said in the chat, does Fathom, the free version, take notes for longer than 30 minutes? It did when I was using the free version. If it's only 30 minutes on the free version, then that just might be where they're cutting it off. But the last time I used the free version, it was able to record, I think, up to 60 minutes. But might need to check in with Fathom next time you use it. So moving on after this, um, this is really how I view using these tools. Um, it really is when you're talking to these tools, LLMs. Um, it really does feel like you're talking to like the smartest 5-year-old you've ever talked to. It's very intelligent, but it doesn't have a lot of contextual information. So if you say, write me a blog post, it is going to write you the worst, most generic blog post you've ever heard. Because it's just pulling from a massive amount of information and it doesn't really know how to filter that information specifically for you. So the way that you use AI is you give it information to help kind of focus all of this background information that it's been pre-trained on. So, for example, we're gonna build kind of a business plan in a second. So your data would be SOPs. What are your services? This is your website. How many employees do you have? What's your specialty? The more information you give it, and then the better articulated your prompt is, I want a blog post that's so many words long that uses these keywords that touches on this service. The more text and the more information you give these tools, the better fine-tuned and contextualized the answer is going to get. Um, and it's very cool to think that these tools are adapting to us, and we don't really have to adapt to them as much as you think. When I use these tools, I hit a hotkey on my keyboard, Windows H, and it opens up a recorder that takes my speech and translates to text. And so a lot of talks on AI, which I think are kind of BS. They all say like this is my master prompt or here's the 30 best prompts or whatever. I think that prompting is really outdated. It's like these tools have adapted pretty well to just understanding human speech. So when I start to use these tools, I will just flip on like a recorder, a speech to text recorder, and just yap. I'll just blabber at AI and just talk as if I'm talking to another person. And then it does a very good job of interpreting that into what I'm looking for. So, if you think about what is the skill you have to have in order to do well with AI, it's just communication skills. Can you effectively communicate what you're looking for to another person? And then you're just effectively communicating that to AI. It's the exact same process. So, I wanted to transition and try some more hands-on, um, uh, try something hands-on. This is a book I have been recommended to me. I recommend it to a lot of people. It's called Traction. It's by this group called EOS, which I'm not affiliated with, but they've just been very helpful to me and a lot of other businesses that I've worked with and known. Um, it's about how to gain traction in your small business. And they have something called the VTO, which is a two-page business plan, which really helped my organization. I've facilitated some of these events for some other organizations. So I figured we would kind of build one together. So let's open ChatGPT. And up here in the left is where you can choose the model. Um, GPT 4.0 is the most general one. O3 uses advanced reasoning where it'll think a little bit more. It might take us a little bit longer um, to get this answer, but I'm going to use 4.0 mini, which is good for reasoning and it's a little faster. And I'm going to click on this deep research button. And I'm going to say, what is the VTO in the EOS business system? And using this deep research, it's kind of looks like it's asking me a little bit more questions here. And I want a complete breakdown. I'm being really brief with it just for the sake of the call. Um, so it's doing this research. It says starting here. It should show at the end of this a complete breakdown of what the VTO is. This is something that Perplexity does very well. I still use Perplexity over and their research button here over ChatGPT, but ChatGPT and the way that things have been going is they have so much money and so many developers that what they're doing is as other companies create more beneficial tools in AI, they just copy them. So this has been pretty much a copy from Perplexity. I like Perplexity more. I think it's a little bit more accurate. It also will show you like how it is thinking, where right now this just looks like some black box. But when you use Perplexity, it shows you exactly how it is reasoning. So I'll even show that, like, what is the VTO? I'll actually just copy and paste exactly what I had put from ChatGPT and see just how they differ with Perplexity. You could have it notify you later, but it's creating a plan right now, but it's going to show you exactly how it's thinking and reasoning, which is really cool to see. It's looking stuff up. It's reading from these citations. Um, it determined, this is the information, so it's searching something else. And it found these sources that it's now reading and consolidating, where when you go back to ChatGPT, it's just showing a progress bar. Um, so I like seeing a little bit more of the transparency from Perplexity. I know this is a little bit of a pause here, but I think it's cool to see them actually work in real time. It looks like this is taking a lot longer too than Perplexity. It's only collected about 6 sources so far, where Perplexity has 44 sources that it's reviewed, and it's already done. So this is saying that the VTO is the cornerstone tool of this. This is the framework, the vision section. These are all the sections of the like 2-page business plan, the 3-year picture, all that stuff. So as well as the 8 questions of the VTO. So what I would do when this finishes, which it's still going, is I would create a text document out of this, or I would copy this whole thing and add it right back to ChatGPT. So as soon as this finishes, which it's doing a lot of work here. I mean, this is doing a ton of research. It's used 44 sources that I didn't have to go look up and read and understand. It's done a lot of pretty good research. You're able to actually go into the sources as well and see, like, all right, well, where did it pull from? Some Reddit posts, EOS Worldwide, which is the actual company itself. 90 is a software that uses the VTO. Um, so you're able to validate the information that it's using for the research. And if you don't like something, you should be able to exclude it from the research. So here we go. There's this copy button at the bottom, which will just copy all the text here. And if we come back, I'm actually just going to stop this because it's really taking too long. And I'm going to start a new chat. And I'm going to say, without any kind of deep research or anything, I'm going to say, do you know what the VTO is in the EOS system? And it'll say something like yada yada, it's this. And then I'm going to give it a lot more, all the extra information here. Yes, this is what it is. All right, cool. So then I'm going to say, here is more information about the VTO. And I'm just going to add this information. And at the very top, I'm going to say, don't do anything. Just let me know that you understand. Understood? I've received, right? So now I'm gonna say I don't think I can actually use my microphone at the same time as this, but I would then give it some information like about your business and then have it create a VTO using that information. So let me see if I can actually do that. All right, cool. So my name is Paul and I own a plumbing business. I'm the owner and I have 2 crews. We specialize in emergency services and are looking to grow in 2025. Help me to complete the VTO using the information I've given you and ask me questions for information you don't have yet. I'm not worried about punctuation. I'm not worried about accuracy, any of that stuff. I just gave it some more information and then I gave it all the context of what a VTO is. And it said, all right, well, page one requires core values, requires a core focus, requires these things. And so next steps are let's define your core values. Let's clarify your 10-year target. It walks you through a marketing strategy. And that happened pretty quick. You know, um, this is an example of really how to use these tools. Anytime you need to do research, I use Perplexity. I take that information, I add it back to ChatGPT, and then I say, here's information, help me to complete this. Um, you know, so I hope that we could continue through this, or we could include somebody from the audience and kind of go through this process here live. But I feel like this is enough of a demo, kind of using these tools. I wanted to open it up to the audience and see if they had any questions or see if we wanted to do any live demos together. Yeah, go ahead, Allison.
Thanks. One of the things about ChatGPT and is has always been for me wondering about how accurate it is, and because it doesn't cite its sources. For Perplexity, have you double checked its sources on occasion? How accurate is it, and is it actually making up any of them?
Yeah, it won't. So perplexity, what you're talking about is hallucinations.
Yeah,
So these large language models, if they don't know something, they will just simply make it up.
yeah,
And that's why it was important for me to define that these are like the transformer technology is just predicting the next word. It's not really thinking about this stuff.
right.
So yes, I do check Perplexity, and I did just a second ago where I opened up all the sources and kind of scrolled through and saw where it was pulling its information from. And so it is important to do that. And it depends on what information you're looking for. If you're looking to do some research on health information, yeah, I would definitely check these sources. Um, it depends on how simple of research you're looking to do, but using Perplexity in coordination with ChatGPT is a way to reduce hallucinations. Because you are using a tool like Perplexity, which is pulling from validated sources, so the information is more accurate than just asking straight up ChatGPT to pull from its big database. And then when you add it to ChatGPT, it has something more concrete to work off of.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Of course. Yeah, anybody want to do anything live? Any questions about like, hey, I have this thing I'm avoiding. Can we see how I can get it done for you, knock something off your plate?
Hey,
So I
Dustin.
just have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I would like to
Go ahead.
fucking raise my hand. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, me
Go ahead,
too.
Ray.
Okay, who's going first? Me?
Yeah, go ahead, Patrice.
Oh yeah. Hey, Dustin, that is a great presentation. Thank you very much. A little bit of my background. I'm actually an AI developer, so I write these codes for living. And I don't usually think about the user point of view. I don't usually think of that usability that you're actually presenting. And it's just amazing how to see how you come up with it, all together. And I provide more of a technical consulting to many firms. But I don't know, maybe we can work together at some point, or maybe we can stay in touch. I don't know what we can make together.
Yeah, sure thing.
Yeah.
What kind of AI do you develop?
I work on large language model and natural language processing, generative or non-generative models, and
Right on. For which model?
and right now most of the project I work for is for the defense contract. But you can think of one of the things, because I have to make sure that what I say, it's most of them are kind of secret. But yeah,
Mhm.
what the model we pretty much use is going to be, for instance, a translation model, or uh, you can call it keyword research. Like you want to find a trend or what people are talking about. Sentiment analysis, you can think about something like that. And also forecasting on something like, oh, I'll give a basic example. This is what the stock market is doing. What is going
Mm,
to happen? That's time series forecasting, all right? And you can
sure.
use the different regression models to do those kind of stuff. So it's a breadth of stuff, but we can take that offline and connect. And yeah, even the large language model, we integrate that with, like I consult with businesses who are looking to integrate that directly into their website or into their firm or into their processes. So you don't have to go to ChatGPT to code to check, but you can directly send a request from your website and then use the service of ChatGPT API and stuff like that.
That's great, Patrice,
Yeah.
too. And like I said, maybe take that part offline. But Carrie, did you have a question or something you wanted to ask Dustin? I thought I saw you talking before.
Yeah, so this is, I use AI all the time, and I think that working in education, we're also teaching our students how to use it in an appropriate way. So this is
Mm.
really helpful for me and kind of laying it out for them, especially as we go through um, a new semester in the fall. So kind of tweaking up my how to use your AI tools appropriately and lines with education. But I'm seeing that students are using it more and more.
Mm.
And I'm okay with that. I think many educators are getting in line because it's a tool, right? Um, but how would you recommend, Dustin, that we kind of skirt the line of plagiarism and intellectual
Mm.
integrity and AI? Because I think that there's a lot of employers that are like, why would I hire somebody to do this if they're just using AI? Which might be a little bit antiquated right now, but I think I'm encountering that in education as well as kind of just in organizational structure. So, what was your recommendation there as we're trying to push it forward, but still have some integrity here?
That it's a great question, and I don't envy you. Like that's got to be such a big problem to like try to solve with students using these tools and making sure that educators are up to speed on them too. It's got to be really, really difficult. I would think about that problem coming from how do you address plagiarism right now? And you use citations. Hey, I got this information from this piece of information. So if you're promoting using something like Perplexity or ChatGPT search where it does have that citation, making sure that they're just using the tool in a way where they know where their information is coming from and properly citing it. So it's more of like a research tool. Then once they have that information and they're using it to help with their writing, that's tougher, like it's definitely tougher to define, like to really know if something was written by AI or not, and it's getting harder to determine that. Um, so I would say like at least on the plagiarism front, citing sources and using the tools that are transparent about the sources would solve that. But then when it comes to like translating that information into a writing piece, that 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 seems tough. I think it's just got to be on the teachers to know, like, all right, um, could this student really produce something so eloquent? Did they improve that quickly? Um, it might be a little bit on the educator to kind of pick up on that stuff.
I see. Oh, Deb, you were able to raise your hand. Good.
Thank you. It's different on all these different tools. Yes, so as we know, on many subjects, there are differences of opinion. If you don't specifically ask the tool, please summarize the differences of opinion on whatever the case may be, how I should invest my money if I'm 60 plus. And you just ask the question, how should I invest my money if I'm 60 plus? Will it come back providing the differences of opinion, or will it sort of find some kind of most common answer and give that to you?
If you ask it, give me difference of opinion, it will return with different opinions for sure. So I would definitely, for something financial and exactly your question, I would use Perplexity for that. And then I would prompt it and say, give me difference of opinions. So,
What if you
these
don't
tools,
ask that? What if you
if
don't
you
ask that?
if you don't ask that, it'll make its most like objective claim, using all of the information that it sources. But
So
it's
it's
very
important
important.
to kind of
Yeah, go ahead,
think
Deb.
to that next step and say, I probably want to hear differences of opinion. So I'm going to ask it specifically for that.
Right. And kind of going back to the whole like communication as the foundational skill here. If you're talking with a financial planner and you want difference of opinion from the financial planner, you would ask for it. You would say like, "Hey, I'm 60 plus. This is how I'd really like to, I'm thinking about investing. Can you give me other opinions and not just yours?" You know what I mean? And that person would do that. And so if you're talking to these tools in the similar way, if you don't ask a financial planner for difference of opinion, they may give it to you, but they also may not.
Got it. Got it. By the way, I work for a museum of science and nature. I just picked that as a as an
Yeah,
example.
it's a good
Yeah,
example.
yeah. Okay. That was helpful. Thank you.
Very welcome.
Anika?
Yeah, thank you. I have a question regarding what is a good tool for data interpretation and like graphs and dashboard creation.
I wish I had a good answer for you. These large language models don't do a good job with data and information. There are some custom GPTs that try their best, but they're all text-based and they're predictive models of trying to predict what text comes next. It's not very good at taking in data and extrapolating data. I've tried some custom GPTs in the past that are supposed to be better at it, but I've never really gotten good results out of it. So I would say that like these large language models just aren't fit for that kind of work yet.
Not even like just plotting data, graphs,
Um,
dashboards.
yeah, they're if you give it the information and you're looking to make like infographics, there are some tools. So if you go to a new chat and you go over on the left here to explore GPTs, this opens up a marketplace of a lot of specific AI tools. So there is like Infographics Genius Pro. So let's just look up infographics, and it should come up with all of these different pre-prompted tools that a bunch of nerds have created. So if you look at this, I usually choose based on how popular it is. It's got 50,000 conversations. It doesn't have a good rating. So maybe it's not the best one. But then I would kind of come here and I would give it the data and I would see which one of these produces the best infographics.
Thank you.
Of course.
So Dustin, I've used it, Claude and sometimes ChatGPT to help write some like LinkedIn posts
Of
and
course.
or maybe even kind of tweaking some emails. And I find and you touched upon it before, that, I don't know, I guess maybe the biggest learning curve or one of the learning curves is really writing those prompts, and specifically telling it what you want. So I've seen from yours and other presentations, you can really kind of just go on and on with those prompts. And that seems to be the key. I don't know, do you have any other prompt tidbits or anything that helpful hints from that standpoint? That seems to
Yeah,
be kind of the basis where you really need to start from.
definitely. I think everybody is overthinking prompting. I think that people are overvaluing their ability to choose like the specific prompt. I'm finding that these kinds of tools are adapting to us. So, and I showed it live here where when I opened up my speech to text, I'm just talking to it naturally as if I'm talking to somebody else. I'm not really thinking about the specific prompt. And I'm finding that these tools are getting better and better at understanding me than I need to be at understanding how to translate to it.
I think that's right. I actually, when it first started out, I needed the translation of when they said, "What's your prompt?" I didn't know what the hell they were
Hmm.
talking about there. So
Yes,
I guess I've come a long way in AI now. At least I know what a prompt is.
exactly.
Hopefully we all do now. Um, but no, that's I think a key to it too, right?
So Kurt has a
Definitely.
question as well.
Hey, Dustin, thank you for the presentation. Our organization has gone through the whole like users using variations of GPTs, and um, we're a Microsoft shop, and so we've decided to, as a policy, really encourage everybody to stay in the Copilot environment. Really, our policy is you got to stay in the Copilot environment because we trust the security around that. Even though we understand the limitations that comes with and then using models in the way that you just described here is
Right.
obviously something we'd like to figure out how to do. There's so many people that don't understand what can be out there. Um, I'm just wondering your thoughts on Copilot and the real limitations, because every day it changes and it seems to get better, even around creating agents and verifying these things. What is your feelings on Copilot and my concerns around security within the organization?
It's a very, very hot topic. I just did a talk with the Rhode Island Women's Bar Association, and all of their questions were about that. Was like, what client information can I put into these tools, and how secure is that? So you are right that Copilot will be a lot safer, because it obviously has to go through that other line of defense.
And
If
I'm
you
talking
pay
about
for
the paid version of Copilot too, not the free
Yes.
personal one. Yeah.
Yes. When it comes to using these tools safely, like outside of the Copilot environment, if you pay for a Teams account with OpenAI, which I actually think is like, I think it's $50. It's $25 per user, and you need at least two users. That gives you the most amount of security you can get using ChatGPT. Now, when it comes to things that are like HIPAA compliant, it is not HIPAA compliant, because there needs to be a negotiation between ChatGPT and the API user in order to not save information. So the reason for the like security holes in ChatGPT is that they are obligated to save your chats for 30 days on the free version. If you're on the Teams account, they save your chats for 7 days. So it's technically not zero information. You know what I'm saying? But if you're using an API with the tool, that tool needs to negotiate with like the enterprise level of ChatGPT in order to say, hey, don't save a single one of our chats so we can uphold HIPAA compliance.
Hmm.
But then that has already been negotiated with Copilot at that enterprise level, where like, hey, don't save our chats for training, don't save our chats for any reason. So that's why it's safer. If you're using a Teams account, they can save your chats for 7 days. So that's the level of safety that you get with like the highest level with just ChatGPT. Does that
Okay, thank
answer your
you.
question?
Yeah, it's a part of it. It's an interesting puzzle of you weren't going to be able to answer like the whole concerns I have in this seminar, but yeah, it does answer part of it that I needed. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. Amy, I guess, has a question.
Yeah, hey, Dustin, great session. Thank you so much. One question I had was sort of, free versus paid version, especially of the ChatGPT. Any kind of thoughts on like specific value differentiation, or if it's just like, greater capacity or storage? I'm not quite sure, like, the real reason to get the paid. So that's one piece of the question. But I also work with a lot of young professionals in terms of work readiness and whatnot. And, a lot of the employers, it's like, there's this struggle, I think, right now where young people are trying to, get a leg up. They're trying to, get into their early career, and they're not quite sure where they fit in. Like, they're often quick studies with this sort of thing and they can pick up on it. But can you just give any sort of advice on what specific skills that young people can and should be developing to help companies leverage AI? So not to be like replaced by it, especially before they even really get a foot in the door career-wise, but what skills should they really be bringing so that they won't be replaced by it, but they can actually leverage it and have a positive future? I think a lot of them are feeling overwhelmed with where they fit in.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'll answer that one first, and then go back to the paid versus free.
Thank you.
Um, I think honestly the skill, this is gonna sound weird, but I think the skill that I would look for in a young person that can help an organization is laziness. I think if you give somebody a task and you say, "Hey, here's this AI tool," they're going to find the path of least resistance to get that thing done. And then, so if I imagine I'm an organization and we've been doing things how we've been doing things for a little while, and then we hire somebody young to kind of join the team, we give them access to this tool to think, how can that improve our processes for the rest of the team? I would give them the normal workload, and then they're going to use this tool to find that path of least resistance. And then you review the accuracy of that and the quality of that product. And then that could become the new SOP. So, or the new standard operating procedure. So that may not be the answer you were looking for, but if I had an office and had somebody new, I would probably look for somebody with that kind of disposition. When it comes to the free versus paid, um, and also to include a question in the chat from Allison about are there settings within OpenAI that you're able to get a little bit more security? Paying for Pro does get you more security. So it does open up an option within GPT. Let me see if I can find it here, because I have the teams. And so I know that there's like settings, and then where are we? Delete all chats. There's something here. Custom instructions. I'm wondering where it is here. There's a setting in here that says like, don't use my information for training. I may not have it because I'm on the teams here.
Maybe data controls.
Yeah, it could be data controls. Yeah, you see, thank you very much. Improve the model for everyone is set to off. That means that ChatGPT is not allowed to use my chats to train their model. So they're not allowed to like read them. They do have to save them for 7 days in case of, for compliance. But the Pro definitely gives you more privacy. And then there's more technical stuff, like the Pro gives you access to better models or more specific models. It gets you access to the custom GPTs, allows you to make projects, which we didn't even review during this, but are a big use case of ChatGPT. So I would start with the free. Don't put any sensitive information in there. And then if you're starting to like bonk your head against the ceiling and you want more out of the model, I think it's definitely worth $20.
Well, Dustin, on that, is it only on the paid versions where you get to choose some of these these settings and things, or on the free version, you have any of those choices too? And is it on
You
every, like Claude, GPT, Gemini, all of those?
That's a good question on Claude and Gemini. I would have to check with them. I think there is a setting within the free version where you can have it not use your model for training, but the Pro gives you definitely more security, and the Teams gives you even more security. So if you're worried about using client information or sensitive information, then I would certainly promote the Teams account. But if you're not worried about that too much, you can get really far with the free and even the $20 version.
That's true too. It depends if you're putting sensitive information in there too, right? Okay, that makes sense.
And and the model, if you're using it for general admin tasks, like how I recommend most people get started, you may not need like an advanced reasoning model. You don't need these things that take that long. You can use the 4.0 that comes with the free and the lower tier version. So it depends a little bit on like how much computing power you need and the sensitivity of the things that you're inputting.
Right. Great. Thank you. Well, thank
Yeah.
you again. Any other questions? I know we're running close to time. I want to make sure we finish on time, but
Mhm.
any other last minute quick questions? Um, okay. Yep. I'll get in touch with you. Great. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
So, well, I want to thank you. Thank, um, thank you, Dustin, for the presentation. That was really good, and obviously, there were a lot of questions about it, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more. And one question is this AI or is this me again? You'll never know. Watch out. Program committee, Karen and Carly may be replacing us with some AI. But thank you again, Dustin, for a great presentation and informative. And in the next few days, everyone who registered will receive a survey as well as, I think, a recording of the presentation and of the webinar. And please fill out the survey. It allows the program committee to really identify your needs for upcoming webinars. And don't forget, our next webinar is Thursday, May 15th, The Power of Storytelling by Suzanne D. Clementi, and which I'm sure will be a help to anyone who's doing any sort of business, especially, related to sales and things too, that if you're selling anything. So with that, I want to thank everybody for attending and registering. And Dustin, thank you again for a fantastic presentation. Thank you all, and you all get your 2 minutes back on your day today. Thank you.